Hello everyone, Wyatt Tomlin here. Together today, me and you are going to watch the Ohio statewide Issue 1 forum that was held yesterday on October 17th, which is basically a partnership with the Ohio Debate Commission, in which they have teamed up with two representatives from each campaign, the Vote Yes campaign and the No campaign. And together we're going to be watching this and kind of breaking it down. Which it's very important for Ohioans to watch this across the state to know what Issue 1 actually is, because the overwhelming majority of Ohioans support reproductive health care decisions to be left up to Ohioans and not the government, and not have any interference or involvement from corrupt politicians. And that should just be common sense. So real quick, before we start this, before we start the Issue 1 forum that was held yesterday, I'm going to go over what Issue 1 this November is. So to kind of clear up any confusion whatsoever about Issue 1, most Ohioans would come to me and say, wait, we already had Issue 1 back in August, and that is true. This is a different Issue 1. We've had Issue 1 in August, which was a completely different election, which I'm about to go over in a minute. And we have the Issue 1 that is going to be held on November 7th, 2023 in the state of Ohio. What this is a ballot, is a citizen initiated ballot initiative that will appear on the ballot all across the state of Ohio. And a yes vote, a vote for yes, leaves personal healthcare reproductive decisions up to the people of Ohio, and stripping and blocking interference from government and making abortion and making personal decisions. This includes everything from fertility treatment, birth control, contraceptives, the ability to carry out one's own pregnancy, and of course abortion rights up until, this is very important, up until fetal viability, which fetal viability is the point of pregnancy, roughly around 23 to 24 weeks before the baby can even, before the fetus can even survive outside of the womb. It is a Republican-based lie when they say, because Republicans across the state are trying to push the notion and trying to get people in Ohio to perceive that voting yes allows abortion up until the point of birth. It does not. I want to get that very clear out of the way right now. A vote for yes does not allow abortion rights up until birth. That is a complete lie, very deceiving and very non-factual. But together we are going to be diving right into this. Oh, and real quick, the no campaign, the entire aspect, every single aspect of voting no in this election is detrimental. It has no beneficial effect for Ohioans by voting no. And I just want to get that clear real quick. Because under the no campaign, if no were to be passed, which I highly doubt it's going to be passed, because like I said, the overwhelming majorities of Ohioans support people to have that right to exercise their own basic human right, reproductive healthcare decisions. But if no were to win in November, Ohio's extreme, near total 6-week abortion ban could go back into effect, which bans abortion after 6 weeks, 6 short weeks before women, the overwhelming majority of women even know or become conscious that they're pregnant. With no exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest, no exceptions for if a fetus is determined to have Down syndrome, and not even exceptions for a rape victim if it was a minor. That's what we're dealing with. That is the extreme thing that is being pushed by the no campaign. Like I said, there's nothing good by voting no. I mean, it literally does nothing, because a yes vote, I'm going to go over a yes vote real quick. A yes vote, like I said, ensures reproductive healthcare decisions are up to the people, including when they were raped, because under Ohio Republicans' 6-week abortion ban, which is now placed on hold until further notice, under that, many children, even a 10-year-old girl who was raped in Columbus, Ohio, had to flee the state in order to receive reproductive health care. She was raped. She was raped by a man in his 20s, and she was denied reproductive freedom in the state of Ohio under Ohio Republicans' extreme near-total abortion ban that holds no exceptions for rape. No exceptions. Even if you're 10 years old and you were raped, you cannot get an abortion under Ohioans, under Ohio Republicans' law, which, like I said, is on hold right now. But if no were to win, that law is going to go back into effect. That extreme law that it could be someone as young as 8 who gets raped and they are denied that exercising of reproductive freedom. And I really hope they mention that in this debate forum. So we're gonna take a listen to this, take a look. Yeah.
Well, now that you have heard some of the background on the proposed amendment and how you can vote, let's switch gears to hear from both sides of the issue. Joining us now are representatives from the yes and no side of issue 1. For the yes campaign, Desiree Timms. She's president and CEO of Innovation Ohio.
Let's go.
She hails from Dayton. She has deep roots in the community. You may have seen her on a ballot or two. She ran for Congress in 2020. And representing the no side is Mahek Cook. She's an attorney, small business owner, spokeswoman for Protect.
You know, and I can't wait to hear the argument the representative for the no campaign has to say. I cannot wait. We're about to watch this. I cannot wait for this lady right here to have an argument for the no campaign, because it's literally detrimental. It's not beneficial by voting no in any way, shape, form, or matter whatsoever, because it's not up until birth. Like I said, it's up until fetal viability. So let's get into it. Come on.
In Ohio, she has also been on the ballot, having run for state representative in 2020. For the next 50 minutes, we're going to hear from them as they answer your questions and questions from 2 of the journalists who have been covering this issue this year. Let's take a look at our panelists. Joining us now, Tyler Buchanan and Karen Kassler. Tyler is a co-writer for the Axios Columbus newsletter covering news, politics, and culture in Central Ohio. And Karen Kassler is the bureau chief for the State House News Bureau and reporting daily for Ohio's public radio stations. Thank you, panelists, for being here. Karen, the first question is to
Let's get into this.
It is for both candidates.
Several people who submitted questions to the Ohio Debate Commission's portal asking for submissions were curious about parental consent and how parents' rights would be affected by the amendment. The Attorney General...
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but I just have to pause this again. So that's another thing, another deceiving, misleading, misguiding attempt being pushed out by the no campaign is they have it all over their signs, on the bottom of their signs, protect parental rights, when the literal root and the literal meaning of this bill of voting no takes away people's reproductive rights and takes away parental rights with no exceptions. I mean, it's so just
Dave
bizarre.
Yost had issued a legal analysis. He asked his staff to come up with this. And that legal analysis said the amendment does not specifically address parental consent. And the amendment does not refer to women or pregnant women, but to individuals. And some are saying that that could open the door to include minors as well. So I want to ask you both, can you explain how a yes vote or a no vote would specifically address parental consent?
And since the Yes campaign brought this ballot to the fore, you get the first opportunity to respond. You have
Let's do this.
90 seconds in your response. You have 45 seconds for your rebuttal.
Let's hear it.
Ms. Timms.
Well, I'm happy that this question was asked because there are so many confused voters out there because of the misinformation by the no campaign.
Exactly.
The
You know,
legal
5 seconds into her speaking, she's already doing a great job. She was just literally talking exactly what I'm talking about. The no campaign's trying to misguide and deceive people.
memo was in fact clear. There isn't any language that includes anything about children. In fact, children will still have to receive parental consent for any medical procedure.
That's how it exactly, and that's how it's always been too. It's just the argument by the No campaign just doesn't make sense.
The extreme abortion ban that is currently on the books and our ability to make medical and healthcare decisions for ourselves and removing politicians from the process. That's what the Yes campaign is about, making sure people can decide what's best for their healthcare and not politicians in Columbus.
90 seconds, Meg. Your response to this question.
So I'm glad that question was asked. We
Here's
have
this-
to set the record straight today. Issue 1 is whether you're pro-choice, pro-life, or even somewhere in between, it is truly about protecting parental consent. Right now, the ACLU has written a very broad amendment. I urge every Ohioan to read it. If this was truly about abortion, they would have used the word woman instead of individual. They would have stated that there was an age limit to perform an abortion. They don't do that. They're taking away parental consent and notification.
No, they're not.
They're allowing for late-term abortions.
No, they're not! Dude, I knew this was gonna be spreaded. I knew the representative for the No campaign was gonna say this. They're allowing late-term abortions. But I'm gonna fact check this really easily. Okay? I'm gonna fact check this. 2023, Ohio, issue 1, right there. Stop f***ing moving, camera. What this does is, right here. In Ohio, protecting the right to abortion up until the point of fetal viability, while permitting restrictions after. Like if the woman is literally dying, and she can't survive unless she has an abortion. But fetal viability, and I've been over this, like I said this at the very beginning of the video, is between 23 and 24 weeks of gestational age, and it is at a time if the fetus, if the undeveloped fetus was out of the body, it wouldn't even survive. So it's not alive. So what is your argument here? I don't even understand what the point of this, what if the point of her saying that was. It just
15
wow.
weeks can feel pain. And most importantly, there are health and safety standards on our books today for women. They eviscerate all of those. And all we have to do is look at the state up north. They have a similar amendment that was passed, and Gretchen Whitmer has basically said that today, every law on her books is unconstitutional, from parental consent to 24-hour waiting period to ambulatory care to even having somebody ask, a healthcare provider ask a woman, are you being abused at home? That is not acceptable. That is not what Ohioans want today.
45 seconds to
And I love how she mentioned Gretchen Whitmer and the proposal just went into law in Michigan. It was Prop 2023 or something. It was in Michigan last year, in which Michigan showed up for protecting abortion rights, and Ohio's going to do the same by voting yes on issue 1 this November.
When I think about children in Ohio, I think about the 10-year-old girl who was raped.
Exactly.
And was forced to flee the state of Ohio, travel to Indiana in order to have an abortion. Because
I just said that too, yeah.
The abortion ban that is currently on the books, there are no exceptions for rape, incest, or even the life of the mother. And no Ohioan should have to flee the state in order to access health care.
45 seconds to
So what happened to that young girl is horrific. But let me set the record straight. We have a 22-week ban today, and there are exceptions for the life of a mother. But what's most important is if issue 1 passes, then young women that are being trafficked, young women that are being raped, will be able to go to a clinic without parental consent. It just happened with a soccer coach. A 14-year-old was raped by her soccer coach in Ohio. He pretended to be her father on the phone. More and more victims and predators will get away with rape. We have to protect
What are you
the life
talking
of our
about?
innocent children and vote no on issue 1.
Let's go back to our panelists now. And Tyler,
There's no way.
Hi, this is another question for both, and it also comes submitted by an Ohioan. The amendment text states that if this passes, abortion cannot be prohibited if a treating physician believes, quote, it is necessary to protect the pregnant patient's life or health. Jeff from Pataskala wants to know, what does the word health mean? Is this mental health, physical health, or could it even mean financial health?
Desiree, I'll let you start.
That's another great question. When we talk about healthcare, that's between the doctor and the patient. And politicians shouldn't be defining health, right? That's between the science and the physicians studying healthcare. Every doctor will tell you every pregnancy is different. And I trust doctors to make an assessment about their patient in terms of their healthcare. That is
Exactly. Instead of Republicans just immediately saying no, you can't have an abortion no matter what. After 6 weeks, if you were raped at the age of 10, you still can't have one. You have to give birth to that rapist baby and go through the pain of giving birth at just the age of 10. That's what Republicans want to do by trying to push the getting no to win in November. And
what this amendment is about is removing politicians from the process so that we can continue to access the health care we need without people in Columbus deciding what's best for us. Voting yes will ensure that the decisions made in the hospital room are between a doctor and their patient, and the doctor doesn't have to fear treating his or her patient because of what a politician might say or do in Columbus.
Heck, 90 seconds, how is health defined, you think?
I don't even have to think about this. It's what the Supreme Court has said today. They have held that health is financial, social, mental. So at the end of the day, the Supreme Court has already ruled on this. It is up to the doctor, the abortionist. They get to define what health is today, and that is unacceptable. And if you want to turn this...
It's not up to... What is she talking about? It's up to the doctor. It should be up to the people, to the one that affects their actual body to carry out their own reproductive decisions. Hold on, what? Go back.
Ruled on this. It is up to the doctor, the abortionist. They get to define what health is today, and that is unacceptable.
It's up to the doctor and to the abortionist. Wow. The person who's receiving the abortion or receiving the reproductive care like fertility treatment or contraception or birth control is asking the doctor for that. The doctor's not just giving it that. I don't even, what the,
And if you want to turn to science, as Desiree has pointed out, 15 weeks is what science tells us is when an unborn child feels pain. So anything
like you give a shit about
must
science,
be prohibited.
motherfucker.
We have to look at the law and the
Bullshit.
facts today. It's absolutely important to have a doctor-patient relationship, but more important is to make sure that we have parental consent if there's a young girl going in, that we have the proper care and treatment for our families.
45 seconds.
I'm happy that my friend here mentioned 15 weeks because the extreme abortion ban on the books is more like 6 weeks. And that's why people like Beth and Kyle had to travel out of state in order to access health care because they had a wanted pregnancy and the organs were growing outside of the fetus.
I seriously don't think I could have said it better than she just said it. The response she just gave to the ugly bitch who is represented by the No campaign.
And the only way to continue was to have an abortion, so they had to leave the state. This extreme abortion ban is not about 15 weeks, it's 6 weeks.
6
In
weeks.
fact, amendments were offered in
With
the
no
State House to
exceptions.
make sure it wasn't so extreme, and it was rejected every single time. And as a result, we have an abortion ban in Ohio that bans health care access at 6 weeks.
45, and then I
Exactly.
do want to pick up on this one point that a lot of folks have been concerned about the lack of any exceptions. Your response.
So,
Oh, I
there
can't
are
wait for this
exceptions
one.
in our law today. Put aside the heartbeat bill, which has exceptions. I urge Ohioans to read that for the life of a mother. Today we have a 22-week ban. That is our law in Ohio. But that's not what we're talking about, Curtis. This amendment allows for full-term, late-term abortions, partial birth abortions. The ACLU had a pen on this, and I want to ask them, why didn't they define viability? Why didn't they use the word woman? Why didn't they say at 15 weeks or 22 weeks? I mean, you wrote this amendment. I think Ohioans deserve an answer. Why are we so extreme today? Why aren't we protecting for an
You
organization?
talk about
per woman?
extreme, right? You talk about extreme when you're trying to, you even mentioned 15 weeks for some reason. When, based on what you're saying, by voting no, would eventually make the 6 week abortion ban go back into effect.
Aren't we protecting women and our children?
I want to give you 45
Protecting
seconds to
women and
respond to
children.
that.
Wow. Children. Protecting children. So, a child to her is an undeveloped, unfully developed fetus at the point of fetal viability who would not survive out of the womb. That's what fetal viability is. It's the point of pregnancy where you cannot survive out of the womb. So if you can't survive out of the womb, like I am, I'm out of a womb, I'm alive. But if you can't survive out of the womb, you're not alive. You can't survive. But a 10-year-old girl who was raped is a child. And by her own argumentation, the representative for the No campaign wants to force her to give birth at 10 years old to a baby that she didn't even have consent over. Because you know what rape is. Rape is non-consensual. That's what the entire meaning of being raped means. It's entirely non-consensual. So she didn't choose to have that. The 10-year-old girl who should be playing with dolls is not old enough to be a mother and should not be forced to give birth. I mean, this is so extreme. And she turns it around on the representative for the Yes campaign, acting like she's the one being extreme, when the literal No campaign wants to force someone as low as 10 to give birth. I'm appalled and taken back, and this is so disgusting.
Because this has been a big question when it comes to this, and that is why there is no defined viability.
So the current language, as written, includes reasonable limitations after fetal viability. What we are concerned with is when patients enter into a hospital or a healthcare facility and they have a fetal abnormality or they have a personal healthcare challenge, that they can access the healthcare they need. The current law on the books says no. The current law on the books requires doctors to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. They don't want to risk their medical license because they want to follow the law.
And if they let women decide what they do with their own bodies, the doctors could be imprisoned for a very long time. Even in some cases, longer than the rapist if the woman was raped. The doctor, you heard me right, the doctor would be imprisoned longer than the rapist who raped. It's just
as written. And so this is an opportunity, and the yes vote is an opportunity to ensure that politicians aren't making that decision for families and for couples at such a personal and private moment.
exactly. That's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate and want to raise awareness about voting yes and the importance in voting yes, because it affects me, it affects my future, it affects my generations, and it affects future generations. Because if I have a partner and it's, if it's between the decision of using contraceptives and carrying out our own personal reproductive healthcare decisions, do we want it to be up to us and based on our circumstances and do what's right and carry out what's best for us? Or do we want, with no even hearing of our situation, and saying no to absolutely everything of it, every aspect of it?
I think it needs seconds to respond before we move on to the next.
That's why I'm so passionate about voting yes on issue 1 in Ohio. Because it's really just common sense. It's really just the basic human rights. I mean, that's literally what it is. It's just basic.
Absolutely have.
It's something that we shouldn't even have to ask for.
Protections in our law today for women. The fact that the ACLU is peddling misinformation about contraception, which is available in Ohio, miscarriage care, which is available. And I can tell you, I gave birth last year to my son, and in between, I thought I was having a miscarriage. I went to Riverside Hospital. They gave me the proper care, and thank God my son was born. But to peddle misinformation, you don't have to hear it from me. Go ask your doctor. Do I have contraceptive care? care? Do I have miscarriage care? We have to start telling the truth about this. We have to protect parental consent and children. We have to vote no because
What the
our moral
does
compass
parental
and our families
consent
are at
have
stake
anything
today.
to
This
do
is
with
too
what she's
extreme and
saying?
Radical. Governor DeWine just launched an ad. He studied this amendment and said this is too radical for Ohio.
Let's go back to
Talk
our
about
panelists
radical.
now. Karen, next question is to you.
Picking up on the statement about moral compass here, Sherry Hepner from Cleveland asks, is the viewpoint of those who will not be harmed by abortion more important than the viewpoint of those who probably or definitely will be harmed by the lack of complete control over their reproductive choices? Also, as an atheist, why must I be bound by the dictates of someone else's conscience? And I wanted to ask that to Ms. Cook.
Well, thank you for the question. It's really important to know that this amendment is not about a woman's abortion specifically. It's broader than that. This amendment specifically is allowing for reproductive decisions. Again, the ACLU had an opportunity to define that. Reproductive decisions means cross-hormone therapy, transgender surgeries, painful surgeries
That's
that
not
we
what
don't want our children to go through today. And again, if you want
Transgender
control, then the ACLU should have written a ban, whether it's 15 weeks, 22 weeks. So it's not about
It's 6 weeks. There she went again. It's
what
6
the moral
weeks.
compass is today. Everyone has a different moral compass for their family, but I urge Sherry and her family to sit down and have those tough conversations.
Listen, if you're against abortion and you don't want it, don't get one. You know, if you want, you can post a little media post online like Facebook and say your beliefs on how you think abortion is wrong. If you don't like abortion and your sister, for example, if this lady's sister is considering getting an abortion, if you don't like abortion, try to convince your sister and try to indoctrinate your sister into not getting an abortion and not exercising her reproductive health care decisions. But don't make it a law where it's banned with I mean, not even giving any circumstances. It's banned, just flat out. Not even going to hear your circumstance or what you're going through. I'm going to ban abortion after 6 weeks with no exceptions. That's what this is all about. You know, she makes it look like this is about parental consent, but it's going to strip away, her argumentation is going to strip away parents, even for both ways. I mean,
we shouldn't have a radical amendment that allows for any of those decisions to happen outside parental notification, outside parental
radical
control.
amendment. It's gonna get passed. We're gonna come together. We're gonna find unanimity, and we are going to protect reproductive freedom when given the opportunity in the state of Ohio. I'm confident of that because the majority of people in Ohio have at least some common ground that they can vote yes on this issue.
Outside a thoughtful discussion that Ohio genuinely needs. We have in Dayton Dr. Martin Haskell, who has performed thousands and thousands of partial birth abortions. He is the godfather of this. That is what we're trying to prevent. Congress prevented this by passing a law, and guess who the number one donor in this in this issue is? It's Dr. Martin Haskell. He has a business plan because he wants to continue performing partial birth abortions. So I urge anybody to look at this amendment. This is not just about
Yeah, please do. That's one part I do want people to do is look at this amendment and look what they're actually voting for. Right here. I have it pulled up right here. Go to this site and read the entire amendment and read what it means. And I guarantee you'll support yes.
abortion. It's about much, much more. And if it was, they would have used the word woman. They would have defined viability. They did not.
It's not just about women. I mean, men use contraceptives. Men use preventions of potential pregnancies. I mean, what do you mean stating women? This isn't just about women. This issue does not just affect women. It continues allowing and brings it to the Constitution and keeps it safeguarded by the Constitution for one to carry out one's own reproductive healthcare decisions, whether that be abortion, which in that particular case is the woman only, but also contraceptives and birth control. It's not just the woman that's affected by this. It's
Issue
both.
one is about ensuring that politicians are in the hospital room with you and your partner.
That's exactly
And I'm
what
happy you brought up
we're saying.
Dayton,
Yes,
because
exactly.
There was also a patient in Dayton who
And I've also said this many times before. I've said this on Threads. Go follow me on Threads at Wyatt Tomlin on the new social media powered by Instagram platform. I've said this many times. Issue one is not about abortion. It's not about abortion. It's about choice. It's about whether that be choice on abortion or whether that be choice on contraceptives or fertility treatment or to carry out one's own pregnancy. This is about choice. This is about, like exactly what she said, keeping politicians out of the room, keeping politicians out of that sacred decision that should be left up to the people who it's affecting, the people's whose body it is, and doctors. It should not be up to politicians.
had a once pregnancy. Unfortunately, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she needed to terminate in order to get the chemotherapy and radiation she needed to live. To live. And because of that, because of this extreme abortion ban on the books, she had to leave. Can you imagine leaving home, extra expenses on top of the trauma and the heartache that you're dealing with because people in Columbus and the State House, whose names you don't know because you've never even voted for them, said you have to leave the state in order to access the health care you need because we have an extreme abortion ban on the books with no exceptions.
Exactly.
No exceptions.
Exactly.
I want to give you a chance.
I really couldn't have said it any better. I really couldn't have.
As it relates
That
to representation.
the Vote Yes campaign has a great person representing their campaign.
As the Ohio Supreme Court has pointed out in previous rulings, there's a lot of aggressive gerrymandering here. So the people that are making the decisions in the State House are not necessarily entirely, at least, representative of where the rest of the state may be on this issue.
That's exactly
I find
it
it
too.
interesting that the Supreme Court once again asked both sides if they were okay with the maps that were presented in a bipartisan fashion, and the Democrat side said they had no objection. So as far as I know, for the next 8 years, we don't have
Well, the
gerrymandering.
supermajority was already in place, right? I mean, to be clear there. We're talking about a situation where you're talking about the most recent ruling. Prior to that, the maps that decided the last election were ruled unconstitutional. There might be some people out there that may be concerned that their votes aren't being represented.
Well, I think votes are being represented today, and I think that every parent, every family
They
should
are.
know.
I mean, 2/3 of the entire legislative chamber is dominated by Republican support, or dominated by Republican control. When the state of Ohio is a swing state, it went for Donald Trump by only 8 points in 2020. And Trump got like 53% of the vote and Biden got 46% of the vote. But under the Republicans, the Republican drawn maps in the legislature are literally like 60, almost 70% filled with Republicans. How is that fair? And how is that fair for them to make the decisions for the rest of us in which they don't even accurately represent because they're gerrymandered into their district?
That this amendment is truly about much more than abortion. It is much broader. The ACLU deliberately wrote a very broad amendment. You have the ACLU attorney specifically stating that they wrote an amendment because healthcare
She's really obsessed with this because she's not talking about anything else but the ACU and all this other stuff.
surgeries. When asked, there's not a single person on the abortion industry side that will explain to us why they didn't use the word woman. So this is intentional, and I have to set the record straight. We have access. For anybody to say that women don't have access to contraception, miscarriages, or abortion at 22 weeks is flat out lying to Ohioans.
At 22 weeks, it's currently under 22 weeks, but by voting no doesn't ensure that the 6-week abortion ban could be stopped. And by voting no, that's opening a streamway to that 6-week near total extreme abortion ban going back into effect. So she talks about 22 weeks. She's literally participating actively in misleading Ohio voters. It's currently at 22 weeks because the 6-week abortion ban by Ohio Republicans has been put on hold, on temporarily hold. That means if yes doesn't win and it doesn't make it in the Constitution that politicians can't interfere with personal reproductive health care decisions, if it doesn't, I mean, it's...
And I think every Ohioan is smart enough to Google that. I think you Google what step can you have an abortion at? It says Ohioans at 22 weeks.
That's true. I just said that. But like I said, once again, her entire campaign, after if no wins, the 6-week abortion ban is going to go back into effect in the state of Ohio. The 6-week abortion ban. It's been put on hold temporarily. And by voting yes, permanently puts that on hold.
Anti-abortion advocates all across the country have introduced legislation that bans or restricts birth control.
Exactly.
IVF. We've had legislators right here in Ohio who mentioned an interest, a fond interest, in banning birth control and miscarriage care. Issue 1 is about removing politicians from the process, period. It is about ensuring that when you are in the hospital and you need life-saving health care, or you are a survivor of rape or incest, that you can get the health care that you need, and you don't have to worry about a politician from the other side of the state who can interfere with that decision. That is simply what this is about.
It is.
Women who get...
It's not about abortion or killing babies or whatever the extremist Republicans want to say. It's about reproductive choice. That's what it's
have
about.
An opportunity to have autonomy
Period.
over their body.
Let's go to our panelists for the next question. Tyler?
I want to continue the conversation about the wording of this amendment because a lot of the debate surrounds kind of the language here. This is a question for Ms. Timbs. Attorney General Dave Yost had the legal analysis. He said the amendment text, in his words, quote, provides little in the way of definitions, and he says some terms, quote, have debatable meanings, rendering their interpretation much less certain going forward. Ms. Timbs, do you agree or disagree with this assessment, and why?
Well, I think that's an opinion by the Attorney General, and the facts are the language is written in black and white, and anyone can visit readtheamendment.com and read it for yourself. The language is very clear. This amendment, issue 1, a yes vote, is about ensuring that politicians, regardless of their party or political affiliation, do not have a say when you are pregnant and you need life-saving care. They do not have a say when you and your partner are making very intimate, personal, and private decisions. The government should not be in that hospital bed with you. You, your family, and your doctor, that is it. A yes vote will ensure that that remains the way things should be. Unfortunately, right now, we have an extreme abortion ban law on the books. At 6 weeks, you cannot access abortion care after that.
Like I said again, that is likely, that 6-week abortion ban is likely to go back into effect, and maybe even permanently in Ohio if issue 1 does not get passed. That's the fact. That's the bottom line. It will go back into effect if yes doesn't win on issue 1.
Do not pass this amendment. That will be the law of the land, and we will hear more stories about the 10-year-old girl, which the Attorney General and others said didn't exist, that she made the whole story up. We'll continue.
And Jim Jordan said that too, and he said he doesn't regret saying that. That they literally came out with the conspiracy theory that was a lie, that the 10-year-old girl who was raped and had to flee the state, they said that was a lie.
to appear. We'll hear more stories about the cancer patients. We will hear more stories about Beth and Kyle, who have a wanted pregnancy but have fetal abnormalities and they have to leave the state. We will hear more stories about working class people needing to leave to access the health care.
And there was actually one lady in the state of Ohio who nearly bled to death because there was a problem with her pregnancy and she had to receive an abortion in order to continue surviving. And she had to also flee the state because that was the time when the 6-week abortion ban was in effect in the state of Ohio. She almost bled to death and she had to flee the state and to receive abortion, even if that meant to save her life.
They need. So whether you are pro-life or pro-choice, if you believe in removing the government from those private personal moments, I encourage you to vote yes.
9 seconds.
I 100% disagree. I think every Ohioan should know that the ACLU wrote this amendment. It was very...
Bitch, ugly slut. Stop talking about the ACU. What the fuck does that have anything to do with this amendment? I mean...
deliberate. And let me read to you. Every individual has a right to make its own reproductive decisions. They didn't write every woman. Individual means man, child, it could be anybody. Why didn't they use the word woman?
Because contraceptives are used by men as well. They're not just used by women, you dumb f***. I'll show it to you. The right to reproductive freedom with protections for health and safety, enlisted on the ballot as issue 1. If a 4 vote passes, the initiative would codify reproductive rights in the Ohio Constitution, which includes contraceptives used by men and women, fertility treatment, whether to continue one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and would restore the Roe v. Wade era access to abortion rights up until fetal viability. For God's sakes, Jesus Christ.
Refuse to answer that question. Reproductive decisions. What's a reproductive decision? It's something that impacts your reproduction. So it could be cross-hormone therapy, transgender surgeries, anything. And most importantly,
that's not what's on here. Reproductive decisions, including, it's right here, including contraception. And they have it twice on here. This is what it means. This is what it means right here. This is what a vote for yes means. Every individual has the right to make and carry out one's own reproductive health care decisions, including but not limited to decisions on contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion. The state shall not directly or indirectly burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate against either an individual's voluntary exercise of this right or a person or entity that assists an individual exercising this right. That's what it means. It mentions nothing of transgender surgery or all of this bogus, crazy shit that she's talking about and she's saying.
When an abortion is permitted versus it's not. It specifically states, and I'll read to you, fetal viability, the point at which a pregnancy at professional judgment of a patient's treating physician, the fetus can survive. However, it's determined case by case. So now you're letting the abortionist decide when viability exists. This is extreme. It's allowing for late-term partial birth abortion. And by the way, the other side has not discounted this. They continue to come as we ask questions. Why didn't you define viability? Why are you for late-term abortions? The other side does not respond to this. If you vote no today, you're actually going to be protecting our women and children.
Desiree, 45 seconds.
You just heard the language for yourself. My friend read it to you. There are reasonable limits after fetal viability. Fetal viability should be determined by a physician, someone who's actually studied medicine, not someone who got voted into office at the State House.
Exactly.
Fetal viability, that should not be determined by any politician on the State House floor. There are reasonable limits.
So the representative for the No campaign trust politicians, Republican-dominated politicians, over trained and professional doctors who specialize in what they're doing. That's what basically is going on.
The language is clear. I encourage you to also read it for yourself. Read theamendment.com. You can learn more about this amendment and why you should vote yes. If you believe politicians shouldn't be in that hospital room deciding and defining fetal viability and that should remain with doctors, then I encourage you to vote yes.
Vote yes.
Mahek, I want to go to the statement that you made about transgender issues being involved in this. The Attorney General, David Yost, his analysis does not necessarily agree with that perspective. Having had no law in place in Ohio that actually addresses this issue, why does this continue to come up? Okay.
Well, he doesn't disagree either. He says that there will be litigation about this. Reproductive decisions should have been defined, but it wasn't. And we see across the country, state by state, that are targeting our young children. State of Washington, they just passed a law that allows for a child to go through life-altering, painful surgeries without parental involvement or notification. They get to stay at 6 weeks at a Safeway
That's
house.
not true, by the way, either.
What we want. Again, if we want to have these in-depth discussions about abortion, let's have them. But this amendment, it stops all of those discussions. This amendment allows for our children to be targeted. This amendment allows for late-term abortions, partial birth abortions. That's not where Ohioans are today. And it eviscerates our health.
Ohioans are here today because and this has been throughout the entire history of the state of Ohio, ever since polling and ever since tools were made to learn how people feel about the issues. Let's take a look here. 58% for issue 1, for voting yes, and 34% against, and that's undecided. So this is nearly 60%. Nearly 60%. And I love how she said Ohioans don't stand for this. Right here. For. They are for this. And let me show you exactly what they're for. The exact words it asked them. So, approval ratings, blah, blah, blah. And where is it at? Approval. Where's it at? Here it is. Here it is. Issue 1 is an amendment to the Ohio Constitution which would protect the right to reproductive freedom, including, and this is quoted, and I also just showed you this on the Wikipedia page as well, access to contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion, end quote. The amendment would also allow the state to prohibit abortion after fetal viability, which it prohibits it after fetal viability unless, here's another quote, it is necessary to protect the pregnant patient's life or health, meaning if she's dying, end quote. If the election was held today, how would you vote on issue 1? Boom. Massive, near 60% said voting yes, and a incredibly low 33% said no. There you go, folks. There you go.
Today on the books, if you're going through some traumatic reason for going through abortion, you have to be affiliated with an ambulatory facility. We would get rid of that. God forbid there's an emergency. What does that woman do? 24-hour waiting period. When I go see my doctor today, because I am 7.5 months pregnant, they always keep me separate from my spouse and say, is there domestic abuse at home? Guess what? That won't exist anymore. Why are they so anti-woman? Why are they so anti-protecting what is so sacred today, which is our families and our youth? I don't understand it. They had every opportunity to write a clear amendment, and they didn't.
45 seconds to rebut this.
Yeah, well, I mean, she didn't answer the question because the answer to the question would be more misinformation. The reality is this language has nothing to do with trans children.
Nothing. Like I
I've
said.
already explained the law of the land is that any child trying to seek medical treatment or any procedure must have parental consent. In fact, what the language does say, it says that if you are a person who is pregnant, if you and your family, you're in that room and you need to decide the outcome of the procedure to save your life, or the fetus is abnormal, that is a decision that can be made in the moment between you and your doctor.
All right. Let's go back to the panel. Karen, you've got the next question.
This question is for Ms. Timms. If issue 1 passes, the ban on abortions after 6 weeks would be eliminated. That ban, of course, is currently on hold. But other protections would be
Like
created,
I was saying,
such as the right to
like I was saying.
contraceptives and fertility treatments. These protections are not in state or federal law right now, and some might even call them new rights. So for those people who are looking at that part of the amendment and using that to make their decision,
And
how
that's what voting yes on issue 1 does. It puts fetal viability, and it puts access to contraceptives and access to birth control. It embolds it into the Constitution and safeguards it into the Constitution, so where it can't be changed, which is reproductive human freedom.
those be guaranteed and not left up to legal interpretation?
What this amendment will allow is it will allow us to ensure in writing and ingrained into our state constitution that we have the right to birth control, that we have the right to fertility treatments, and that we have the right to say and do what we need to over our bodies. That is what this amendment is about. A yes vote will ensure that Republicans or Democrats or whoever is in office can't take away your right to access birth control. They can't take away your right to access fertility treatments. I would not chance my rights with politicians because, as you know, control changes hands all the time. This is about ensuring that the control is in your hands and that you can do what you need to do in order to ensure that your health care is prioritized. Health care is personal. Health care is private.
It should be, at least, because a lot of other states are banning abortion with no exceptions.
Healthcare should be a decision between you and your doctor and your family. No way should a politician come in and say, we're going to take away your birth control pills. We're going to take away IVF. It has been introduced in other state legislatures, and we are saying up front, it's a no for people in Ohio. And that's why everyone will vote yes in November, because they know these rights matter, and they're personal and they're private, and politicians have no business being in the room when you make that decision.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to end it right here. If you want to watch the full debate and full forum in length, the link I will provide in the description below, but my camera battery is running low. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to cut it off right here. But yeah, if you want to finish the rest of the remaining forum, the link is in the description. Please get out and vote. If you know anybody in Ohio, reach out to them, knock on doors, spread awareness online via Instagram or Twitter or Threads or YouTube or TikTok or whatever social media platform you have, and really get people to know about the importance and the stakes coming up in this election and what it really means. And because there is a lot of misinformation being spread, there's a lot of negative, misleading guidance being thrown out everywhere in the state of Ohio. But vote yes on issue 1 to protect reproductive health care decisions, period. It's that simple. The government should have no say in decisions when it, even if it's, they don't know the circumstance. And this isn't about, voting yes isn't a vote for abortion. It's a vote for people, for the citizens of Ohio to have the choice to carry out and make one's own reproductive health care decisions without any involvement from politicians who were elected, big politicians who should have no say in anything when it comes to our reproductive decisions and what goes on with our body and our personal lives and health.